Thank you very much. It's really a great privilege to be here with colleagues and friends and to be here for the first time. Kadi, Zahalka and I have been traveling for 2 weeks in the United States, and this is the end of our trip. And last year I didn't make it to Triple IT, but we were in Adams Mosque and met lots of people. And we're very happy to be here to share some views with you this morning. I want to make a slight emendation to the title that we were given, Faith-Based Peacemaking. And so, those of you who know about conflict resolution and definitions, so I divide the world neatly between the rabbis and the lawyers. I'm not a lawyer. So the lawyers and the politicians and the diplomats, they're engaged in what people call peacemaking, or what I call pieces of paper. Okay, they make treaties between governments, and then we spend the next, 5, 10, 15 years arguing why your side didn't live up to the agreement in the treaty. And good lawyers can argue any side of the story, you know.
For a fee.
So, since I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not a politician, I do try to be diplomatic most of the time, not always. I'm going to talk about faith-based peace building, okay? And I think that will help define our discussion. People often want to know if I have the solution to the Middle East conflict. I do, but that's over lunch. But here, we're going to talk about what we do in peace building, which is the work of bringing people together to learn how to live in peace together, which, as you may know, the politicians know very little about, okay? All right, so Abu Bakr asked us to say 3 things, a little bit about our journey, a little bit about our current work, and our message, and I like that approach, and I'm going to be very brief and telegraphic. It's like when you read an internet thing, you know, you get a few lines, and then you have to press more for read more. You have to ask questions to get more answers. So you won't get the whole story, you'll just get the headlines, like CNN headlines. Okay, so I am a Reform rabbi, trained in this country, and I studied, also got a doctorate in education. In 1979, I decided to move to Israel. We call it in the Jewish tradition to move up to the land of Israel. And I have lived in Jerusalem for the past 34 years, and have seen a lot of ups and downs in life in Israel and the region. In 1991, after working in the field of Jewish informal education for many years, I and a few other, it was that time just Christians and Jews, founded this organization which we call ICCI, the Interreligious Coordinating Council in Israel. I'll give you a piece of paper about it at the end. We decided that we needed a voice in Israel, and a safe place where Jews, Christians, and Muslims could come together and learn about each other's identity, religion, culture, narratives. And so for the past 22 years, that's what I've been engaged in. You asked about the journey, it's kind of a professional accident. I just sort of fell into it because someone I worked with got me interested. And I didn't know anything about it 22 years ago, and now I know a little bit about it, mostly from experience. And so it's been an amazing journey. I've learned a lot about other religions, and particularly as I learn more about others, I learn more about my own. So it's helpful. Our work is essentially educational work, similar, I think, to yours in many ways. We haven't published as many books as you have, but we do educational work. We bring people together in our country in 2 ways. One are by creating dialogue groups, youth, young adults, religious leaders, women, educators. We create dialogue groups where we meet and get to know one another over a full year, sometimes 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. And we've created a process where we learn about each other's identity, we study texts of each other's religions, and we discuss issues that concern us as individuals, as we will do here in a few minutes, and we try to take some common action together. So we are engaged in interreligious, our slogan, I think it's on our website somewhere, it says, our goal is peaceful coexistence and our method is dialogue, education, and action. Okay, we are non-political. We don't engage much with the politicians because they fail Kronish's rule of dialogue, which you will remember after today. In order to have dialogue, you can't invite monologuers to the discussion. So we wouldn't invite a lot of the folks in Washington, because as you may have noticed, they're not into dialogue. And so we don't work with politicians very much. A lot of people have asked us why not, and I personally have sort of despaired of politicians in our region. I know it's a lot better in America, but not lately. So we work with lots of people in civic society, youth, young adults, women, educators. That leaves us about 80%, 90% of the people to work with, which is enough work for a while. Okay? So our work is not political, and we don't have political answers any more than the men in the street do. We do know something about what works and what doesn't work when you try to bring people together in dialogue. So a lot of our work is kind of in dialogue groups. The second thing we do is public education, like you do. We have lectures and panels with various groups in Jerusalem where we bring either visitors or local people to learn more about this kind of work, and to make a little noise and to put it in the newspaper so that some people think it's kosher, which means it's legitimate, which a lot of people don't think it's legitimate, so we want to try to make it mainstream. And one of the things people have asked us along the way is who comes to these dialogues, and the general idea is to bring people who haven't been in the dialogue before. You know, in the religion business, people talk about preaching to the choir. We try not to do that. So we usually invite people, it's the first time that they meet a Muslim or a Palestinian or a Christian who meets a Jew, and it's pretty shocking sometimes. We spend a lot of time learning together each other's tradition, and we find something amazing happens when you open the book or the books. What happens? People discover they had something in common in their religions that they had no knowledge of before, and they were very surprised. My favorite quick story about this is we did a think tank several years ago, Jews, Christians, and Muslims, and every month we discussed another theme. One time there's a rabbi presenting a session on the sanctity of human life, and he quotes a famous verse from the Talmud. It says, "He who saves a single life, as if he saved all of humanity." And he's teaching it, and all of a sudden one of the imams in the group says, "You stole that verse from us." Okay, what does that mean? It means I never knew that you had this tradition in your tradition too, because I haven't learned it, so how would I know? So we do a lot of learning together, and learning breaks down stereotypes, especially certain media stereotypes who like to get religions wrong on purpose. You don't know anything about that in America, but in our part of the world, we have that. And so most of our work is educational in one form or another. Our latest, I don't know what to call it, hobby or latest direction is to move into the field of social media. We have despaired completely of the mainstream media. We have played with an idea, Kadi and I, and our trip is to arrange a fake killing before one of our lectures. Like I kill him or he kills me, and we pour ketchup and we call the Washington Post, "Come on over." Should we try it? Next time. Not today. Not from here. Oh, okay. All right, we won't try it here. Nobody seems to be interested. But I'm sure we'll get a lot of media attention if we do that. Okay? But in the meantime, without that, nobody's interested, so we can't get any mainstream coverage. So we are engaging more and more in Facebook and blog and Twitter and YouTube and all these new things. I started last year to blog for the Huffington Post Religions page and for the Times of Israel, and you'll see it on the page I give you. So we have to get around the mainstream media because unfortunately, as you may know, they're not our friends for the most part. There are some exceptions. Last point about I'm doing this. What's our message? So I have I think is a rather simple message, although most people don't get it. Maybe you'll get it. I don't know. We'll see. Many groups who come to visit me in Israel, in particular, and we have them over for dinner or we go out. And they want by dessert they want the solution. We had the solution actually at the appetizer because the solution is known to everybody. So we don't give solutions to the problem. Okay. Some of us who deal in the field of conflict resolution may know that many people have given up the word resolution, and they now talk about, the USAID has a big program in Israel, actually it's a small program, it's called CMM, Conflict Mitigation and Management. No more resolution. Nobody's resolving much lately. So the best we can do is mitigate, make it less bad, a little less hatred, a little less violence, and manage it so, keep it somehow calm or something, I don't know. So, my message is as follows. I wish Senator Kerry and all the people who are working with him good luck, and I would love if he does what he says he's going to do in 9 months. And the good news, if you're following it, is that we don't know much about what he's doing, so the less we know, the better. You follow? If we knew, everybody would be arguing why it's wrong, from every side. So the less we know means something might be going on there positive. So I hope that we can get a political solution sooner rather than later. Okay, I can't tell you when, neither can anybody else, but let's say, for the sake of discussion, let's posit that our political problem gets solved as it was solved in Northern Ireland, as it was solved in South Africa, as it was solved in Bosnia. Conflicts do come to an end. See? I gave a talk last March, this was interesting to you, in the St. Bart's Church in Manhattan, Fifth Avenue. And in the audience was Senator George Mitchell. He belongs to that church, and I said hello to him in church, and then he came to the talk. I was very honored. At the end of the session, after talking, he raised his hand, because I was talking about how to keep hope alive and that there will be a solution and so forth. And he raised his hand, he gave the following story. Maybe some of you heard it. He said, I was in Northern Ireland arranging the Good Friday Agreement between the Catholics and the Protestants. And 5 days before the agreement was signed, someone did a poll in Northern Ireland, and the poll showed 84% on each side said it will never happen. Never, never, never. Which is about what you get now in Israel. Not really, but you hear that. Okay, 84% will never happen. 5 days later it happened. So I tell that story because conflicts do come to an end when you don't expect it. So my message is that let's prepare for when our conflict's going to end. Okay, it's not if it's going to end, when it's going to end, what are we going to do then? And the answer to what we're going to do then is spend the next 30, 40 years changing the hearts and minds of the people to learn to live in peaceful relations one with the other. And that's not a 2-year or 4-year assignment. It's an educational, spiritual project of the next couple of decades. Right now we're in the prologue before the introduction. But when the peace agreement is signed, then we'll be able to do this in full force. Thank you.
Thank you very much.